Awesome. Thank you so much, Maria, for inviting me to today's meetup. And thank you all for your time. I know how valuable it is. I guess to caveat this isn't really just my story. I'm just here to tell it today. I've been with Zurich Insurance since December of 2023, and I joined Zurich just as they were finishing their transformation, but really the transformation has only just begun. We just ran out of funding to continue it ongoing, but that's part of why I look after an agile practice. So my focus is on system-wide agility that really does deliver better value sooner, safer, in a happier way. And today I'm going to share with you a little bit how, I guess, agility at scale can support continuous improvement, improve value delivery, and enhance, I guess, outcomes for our customers, which is really why we want to do all of this. But maybe not just the customers, the people who work within the organization as well. My personal why is what really drives me, because I think it's important to level set on that. It's if you understand what your why is, you can weather almost any storm. And so what we do is really hard when we're trying to change behaviors for people to adopt a different way or a different approach to how they think and collaborate and do things in the workplace today. So I guess I'd start with by saying you can see a little bus there on the side that's got some rocket jets. That's actually part of the Zurich Story that was created as part of their transformation journey. And so a lot of the premise around this is that Zurich's been changing the way that they do things. I made reference to a transformation. They've spent at least 2 years transforming the organization. And, like I said, I can't attribute that to me. There's a lot of people that came before me to do the hard yards and the heavy lifting to get it to this place that it is. I'm a practice lead, so part of my remit is to grow, attract, and retain talent that enables agility within our organization. And I guess as an organization, we want to make sure that, we're actually set up to be able to deliver amazing things for our customers at the right time when they need it. And we know that our world is changing fast. I don't need to tell this community that we live in a VUCA world. And by VUCA, it's, I guess it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex and ambiguous. Who knows when the next pandemic's going to kick off? Could be just around the corner. But I know for me, I felt like a bit of a crackpot when COVID came along, because all of a sudden the things that we'd been talking about became very real. So just a little bit about myself and my team. I've shared a bit about me. Previously, I was at Big W looking after transformation there. I was at Woolworths Group looking after the agile practice. And then for my sins, I did some time at CBA in the wake of APRA and Royal Commission. And then before that, I was working more in the technology space in a consultancy, ThoughtWorks, and I got my agile chops at Suncorp. My team, this little image is a picture of Ichthyosaurus rex. We do have, a mission for ourselves, and we want to bring value-driven delivery to life by fostering a continuous learning culture. I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs around it, but in summary, our mission is to take the ick out of Zurich. That's what we want to try and do. And we want to try and make sure that, we're championing Zurich's transformation or continuing transformation and supporting those who are transforming. So during this talk, I want to cover off Zurich's transformation journey, some of the principles of better value, sooner, safer, happier, and the impact on teams and customers. So what do you know about Zurich? It's in the title. We sell insurance. I think it's interesting. Nothing of significance happens in our society without insurance, generally speaking. So we manage claims, we underwrite and manage risk, we manage reserves, we invest and deliver returns, and most importantly, we serve customers through multiple different channels. And so when I talk about the concept of agility, what I am talking about is how can we make sure that we're embracing change and creating it at pace for the customer's benefit? So did you know that Zurich was actually founded in 1872 and it was a marine insurer? That's where we started, and that's what that little poster is all about. I guess, there's a big gap between 1872 and 2024, which is we have a vision and a North Star that guides us within Australia and New Zealand, and that's to be Australia's leading digital insurer. And that's a small statement, but it's got a lot of heavy connotations that sit underneath it. There's a lot of capabilities that need to be grown in order to be able to reach our North Star. And so I think what's interesting about Zurich is that it was, the transformation was not born from a burning platform. Although one might think about planet Earth, there's one big burning platform with climate change on the horizon and accelerating. Although, let me just park that and go back to our personal why at Zurich. It was really, it came from a burning ambition. And what we wanted to do was make sure that our, operating model of hierarchy, silos, control, big projects, we knew that way of working wasn't going to solve our big business problems. And we also had a large acquisition. We acquired OnePath from ANZ, and we combined our life and our general insurance function because we had a unique opportunity that we wanted to redefine. So you might ask yourselves, why would we want to do that? Part of our purpose is to create a brighter future, and we want many more of our customers to live well and enjoy confident lives. I guess that's what insurance is all about. And the proof in the pudding of insurance is claim time. So claims is our star function. Without it, our customers are not getting what they need. And what we want to do is serve their needs at a time when they really need us, which is usually post, some sort of event, like a catastrophic event. I don't know if everybody saw all the floods that were happening in North Carolina and in the wake of Hurricane Helene and Milton, I think it was. But we can see that these weather events are increasing exponentially. And as such, the need for insurance is also increasing. People want to make sure that they've got some sort of confidence to go on living the life that they want. And so based on that, Zurich's got a real history of trust, or a reputation of trust. We've been around for at least 150 years. And so we need to make sure we chase our ambition before any of our competitors or disruptors do. Why is this so ambitious? Because growing and getting customers to love us is actually really ambitious, and it's hard. The environments within which we operate our business is really hard too. We have a lot of regulation that's in place. And so we also have technology that is enabling the transparency of information and putting it into our hands of our customers much more easily. And so what we do see as like life insurance, for example, there's a lot more claims that are happening in today's day and age. Anyway, I won't wax lyrical anymore about Zurich Insurance, but hopefully that sets a bit of context about the organisation that I'm working within and the story I want to tell a bit about today. So I'm going to play a little video, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. But this is the video that was used as part of the Zurich Story and used to enable the transformation within Zurich. Zurich chose a theme when they kicked this off, and I believe Ronald's in the audience and he can always correct me because he was actually around at a different period to when I was, and he could tell you a little bit more about it if you were curious. But this was the Zurich Story, which was given to all leaders, and all leaders were asked to be able to craft a personal story that went with this. So without further ado, I'll hit play. Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride, and by myself I am alive, and I soar. Still I run toward the wind, and let the challenge draw me in, cause I want more. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 So that just gives you a little bit of a flavour of the narrative that we put behind the transformation to help give. Oops, sorry, I don't know why that's playing again. To help give people a bit of an understanding of the why. I'm sure everyone knows Simon Sinek always start with why, but if we want to unleash the potential of people, it's really important that we give them meaning. Meaning's one of those things that holds people above the line as well, because it's tough doing what we do, and it's really important that people have clarity of the purpose of why they're doing things, and because it's a real enabler for them to be able to value add and contribute more than just delivering a widget or a thing. So on this slide that I'm showing you now, this is the interpretation of better value, sooner, safer, happier for Zurich, I would say. Zurich had a desire to create value-driven delivery. So in addition to having a North Star where we want to be Australia's leading digital insurer, we said, well, how are we going to get there? What's the way forward for Zurich? And so they came up with this system, or a number of systems that are all interconnected. You can't have one without the other. The first one's around intent. People are really clear around why they're doing something and what the outcome needs to be for our customers? Are they clear on purpose? Then are we clear on the work that ladders up to our purpose? Do we know what value actually means? And then once we understand what is valuable, can we actually prioritize it, and can we plan and deliver according to it? In addition to the work, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, we also want to focus on the flow of work. How does the work flow through our systems? How do we create those pull systems as opposed to the push? How do we minimize the number of dependencies? And then talking of minimizing dependencies, we have organization. How do we align our effort to value to make sure that we're organizing ourselves in the best way possible? I think, like every good operating model, it starts with the ideal, and then reality sets in, and there's all these constraints. And another question I get asked often is, when are we going to realize the value of our transformation? And I'm like, how long's a piece of string? Let me tell you about the things that might be slowing you down from realizing the full value of this transformation. And how about we try and do something about it? I guess a lot of business decisions are made, and people can interpret agile as something as doing something to someone else, especially when there are operating model changes or people end up in different roles or that sort of thing. But it's really important that when you're looking at organizational redesign, that if you're going to do it, you want the going from a from and a to state, you want the to state to be better, and you want it to be you want the work to be able to flow through much more effectively, and you want everybody to have understanding and meaning of actually why they're doing it. Which brings me to the core of it all, which is culture. Culture is the most important part of value-driven delivery for us. It's the behaviors. It's the way we think about ourselves. It's how we identify. It's the little, it's the little interactions that we have and our societal norms within our organization, which is our system that we work within. And so I guess that's just kind of a summary of how we framed up better value, sooner, safer, happier, I guess. If I talk about, better value, you would look at intent, right? And portfolio, and you would say, what are some of the customer-centric initiatives that we might have? How is everybody thinking about the customer first? When you think about sooner, it's around, there's actually was a bit of terminology that we want to deliver more value faster. And I was like, actually, there's a real subtle nuance to that language. Faster and sooner sound like the same word, but they're actually quite different, to me at least anyway. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes when you look at faster, it's, you just think of, the value stream, and you think of the wait time that it takes. Most people focus where the effort is, but that wait time is one of those things that really gets in the way. And one of the ways that we overcome it is like through our different techniques of breaking work down, making sure work is customer centric. There are all sorts of techniques that we employ to try and make sure that work flows through sooner, and that we're realizing value as soon as possible and getting feedback quickly. So I'll leave it with that, just so you've got that as a bit of a precursor. And if I think about our organization system, kind of we started with our enterprise containers. I'm sure a lot of you might have seen in a lot of organizations, you've seen all sorts of people taking the Spotify model, which we all know it's not actually a model, it's what Spotify started with, and they did a lot of good PR and learning that they shared with the community that a lot of people adapted and management consultancies loved and took that and then sold it back to organizations, which I do find quite funny. But, the intent of all of this really is to create these structures that enable better flow in our work. Some of these things wouldn't surprise you, but, like a crew, which is, a larger collection of squads within, they're kind of like the delivery engines. You have centers of excellence, which are really about those scarce capabilities where people travel in and out to be able to provide capability support for delivering value to our customers. You also have chapters. Chapters are great when you want to build strategic capability, but also I think you need to recognize that when you put chapters in place, it comes with a cost as well, which means it's hard to be cross-functional because you've basically reorganized people into functional silos, and then you're actually asking them to develop their craft deeply and become more specialists. I think why I say it's good for strategic capabilities, because if you haven't got clarity on, your standards and the approach you want to take for how you help lift the capabilities of the organization, it's really hard to do without it. But I think at some point you need to recognize and constantly look at your organization and go, is it still serving our needs? Is it still giving the optimal impact to our customers? And if it's not, then maybe it's time to relook at your organizational design. It is heavy effort to reorg. There is a true people cost associated with it, which is pretty unpleasant, I got to say, sometimes. And other times it's pleasant, like you're giving people new opportunities and that sort of thing. So I guess what I would like to see happen to our org is that we have an adaptable organization. And I know this might be quite small, but I'm just going to play this little video that I found on TikTok to show you topologies. And so kind of why this is playing, I guess it's like one of the important messages of this is what's different about this. There's some objects that aren't really changing, but then how people are approaching untangling these cords is the thing that actually brings the difference and creates the outcome that they're looking for, which is disentanglement. And so I'm sure a lot of you know that, we often have a role to shape our organization. And by we, I mean, agile coaches and the like. We want to be able to shape how people and teams operate within the broader organization. We get caught up on a lot of these structural names like chapters and crews and guilds. And at the end of the day, what I like people to remember is they're really just names for teams. And if we go back to basics, what is a team? A team is a bunch of people with some skills, and they have a common goal and they need each other. So I like to try and simplify it and say you're a team. You just might have a different focus. If you're a crew and a squad, you'll be focused on delivering value to customers. If you're a chapter, you'll be focused on growing capabilities. If you're a practice lead, you'll be looking at, growing capabilities, attracting capabilities, and retaining those capabilities within our organization. So I hoped you liked that little video and it wasn't a little too radical, but I do like it as a quick summary of where we want to get our organization to in terms of, the different kinds of structures and how we want them to enable us. Essentially, we want, our organization to be able to be agile in their approach, but making sure that the organization and the environment is optimized for flow, for collaboration, and for business outcomes. So when we started, I guess, what are we looking at here? Some of these pictures, this is how it all started. One of the things that got put into place in Zurich as part of portfolio was a quarterly delivery cycle. And look, I've got mixed feelings on quarterly delivery cycles. I like the intent of it being adaptive. In fact, I was a huge advocate and I push for a lot of this change as well. And I do like the fact that it's not enough just to set an annual strategy, set and forget anymore. We know that the world's going to keep changing around us. We just need to make sure that we have an adaptive approach to understanding what's truly important to the business, and then, agreeing where we're going to focus our efforts on. But of course, that kind of gets mixed up in more project-centric or traditional ways of working, where people might look at, quarterly planning or increment planning as a way to go, well, you've made a commitment now, that's what you will do. And it's like, actually, what we made a commitment to was not necessarily to deliver the work. We made a commitment to focus on that work. And so I guess step one of optimizing anything, be it an organization, as a system, be it a crew or a squad or anything really, which is the role of an agile coach, is to optimize a system, and they come at different scales. It's really to make it transparent. So what you're looking here at on this page is we started looking at all the work. For anyone who's read the Phoenix Project or listened to the audiobook, it kind of these pictures remind me of that. This is the backlog from our retail segment that became known as the snake. And I guess that's one of the things I love about the physical. It means that people can actually see it, and then the true size of it is not being obfuscated by the technology. Information radiators versus information refrigerators. We want radiators so people can actually understand and then make some critical decisions around, well, we can't do it all, so what are the most important things that we're going to focus on? So that's where it started. This is how it's going. I'm not going to tell you that we've got it perfect, because we certainly don't. I guess it's really important to be able to celebrate what the success is that people are having. You've got to accept that people are not going to get it perfect the first time. I guess it's really about, how do you recognize the right behaviors to be able to reinforce it? Because the how for me is just as important as the what. And I believe that intellectual property is not the slides that I'm sharing today. It's really in the people of the organization. And so creating those spaces is really important. I think OKRs are great. Having leaders talk to outcomes, which is a lot of work and a muscle that needs to be built when they've probably spent a lifetime of talking to outputs, is a really important thing that's required to empower people so they can add the most value possible. But I do think that with OKRs, if you are implementing memos and that type of thing, it's just remembering that things like a memo are meant to be a narrative that a leader can use, can write down and do some strategic thinking, and then share that narrative with everyone to get alignment so they can go forward and be able to plan accordingly to be able to deliver those outcomes. You lose all effect if that ends up being pushed out to a cottage industry of pen pushers who write these things on behalf of leaders and then send it over to the leader in the hope that they then share it and trickle it down to their team. So, like I said, I like the concept, but again, the proof is that, or the devil is in the detail. It's really how people do bring it to life. So some of these things I took from our annual reports. And so I think the true impact and results is still a case that's building over time. I guess if you looked at it from three different dimensions, it's, what outcomes have we been able to deliver for our customers? What outcomes have we been able to deliver for our employees? And then how's our business performing overall? So some of the results that we've had a significant increase in our what we call TNPS, which is transaction NPS. One of the reasons that I left financial services and went to retail, why I went to Woolies, was because the customer was not real for me in financial services. It was something that was talked about, but it seemed like we were so far away from them, which, made me feel a little disillusioned. So I went off to a place like Woolies where the customer was king. I know, like, when I joined Woolies, they used to make us wear a name badge, because when you joined, you'd have to do induction in the stores, and you'd need to make sure that you had your badge on, because you could be going into stores at any time and you needed to be thinking customer first. And that meant that the customer could identify you as someone who could help you. Anyway, so going back to the customer outcomes, we saw a significant increase in our TNPS already. We've had business growth through existing and new opportunities. I don't know if any of you know, but we have a partnership with Tesla. So when you buy a Tesla now, we've built into the app an opportunity where people can purchase Zurich Insurance for their new Tesla. That was something we did in, I think, probably about 5 months, which was pretty awesome, from concept to cash. And our first policy that was put into place, which was really cool. And we used new ways of working to be able to deliver on that. We also have been able to digitize and improve automation within our business because, again, how do we free up people from the repeatable stuff and put them onto the bigger problems to solve where they can, use their intellect? And I guess what we're trying to do is create an organization of knowledge workers, because that's what's required of us in today's day and age. And so if I think about those customer outcomes, what's the impact from a better value perspective? Well, we have improved services through technology. We focus on value. That's a question that's often asked all the time. If you can't articulate the value, how are we meant to be able to prioritize it and tell people that it's important? And we wanted to move teams closer to our customer so we could understand their needs. We did a lot of work. And when I say we, I don't mean me. I mean the people before me have done a lot of work to be able to flatten our structures because, we'll never know less than we know today. We learn incrementally all throughout. As time goes on, information increases. And so how do we make sure that, we are using that information to really make sure we're understanding what the customer is after? And then from a sooner perspective, I guess, adaptability and agility, that leads to us delivering those outcomes in smaller increments to our customers sooner. From an employee engagement, I already shared with you the Zurich Story video, and asking all our leaders to be equipped to tell their own personal story and connect it to their business why was something that was really impactful and kind of created that personal space where people could get curious and get to know their leaders in a bit more of an intimate way, which then leads to being more open around how they might approach ways of working. I always say, people will ask me, how long does it take to get the benefits of this transformation, or when will we be done? And I'm like, look, we move as fast or as slow as leaders' appetite and their courage. If they are on board with this and they trust in us, then we tend to get a lot more progress and sooner. So it's a leader-led change, and that's what I ask of everyone because I've got a really lean team. There's only 3 agile coaches, and I think I have 3 agile delivery managers as well, which is AKA what we've coined Scrum Masters in effect. So it really relies on leaders to be able to maintain the momentum because whilst people might say that the transformation is over and we're into an era of continuous improvement where we improve not just the what but the how, the reality is that the transformation needs to be activated now. We've done a new operating model. We spend a lot of our effort in that organisation system. However, none of that happens without adjusting the other systems like portfolio, where we put it into a more adaptive planning approach, intent, where we started asking leaders to come up with, what is the consequence of the work, or what is the result that you're actually looking for? Tell us the outcome. Don't tell us the output you want. Let the people who are doing the work figure out how to do the work, which is, easier said than done. And then, so I guess if you look at structure and focus on people and capability, most people tend to value delivery a lot, and that's their natural place. But actually, I'm working right now with our product owners to be able to not just focus on delivery. In fact, if that's where they're focused in the here and now, I don't know if they're really realizing the full opportunity of what they've been invited to do. They're our custodians for value. They represent our customers, and as such, I really need them in the strategic thinking space, which takes time. I can't lie and say that we haven't, implemented any anti-patterns. And so when you think about the anti-patterns, I love your terminology, Maria, which, an anti-pattern is a headwind and a pattern is a tailwind. So I'm like, it's okay if you do these things, and if you feel as though you have no choice. I think what's upon us is to be able to help people understand the cost of that decision. And usually that cost is equivalent to time. So it just means that you'll move a bit slower. And then so we've also had our engagement survey come back. And, one of the things I think was really interesting was to see the engagement actually lift, despite all the change that people are going through and continue to go through. There's a lot of focus on the people, which makes me happy because, as I said, that's where the secret sauce is, the IP, it's in your people. And, psychological safety, how do leaders create that environment where people have an equal share of voice and, there's no fear of reprisal if they do get it wrong, as an example. In fact, I'd really like to change continuous improvement to continuous learning. between us. Why do I say that? Because you don't always improve. Sometimes you fail. And the important thing of it is that you learn regardless of what you do. So I think those are some really key things about creating that space for the learning. And then from a business performance perspective, which is really, this is our ticket to transformation, and it's a hygiene factor. We need to make sure that we have our stable profit growth, and we need to make sure that we have increased efficiency in our operating model and digitization and automation. And I think, if we look around our context around us, the macroeconomic environment, operational excellence, lean thinking, Kanban, anything that's about removing waste from your system is probably where I think organizations should be focused in this sort of environment, which is interesting, right? Because you have a lot of people who take the term agile or agility and say it doesn't apply to me because everyone has a preconceived concept of what it's meant to be. And I guess overall, from a sustainability perspective, we want to make sure that our performance is supported by digital innovation. And we have big asks of our product owners to be able to understand technology, but not even just understand it. We need them to be able to drive it forward when they're putting their product roadmaps together. It'd be really great if they were also looking at our architectural roadmaps, and while they've got the hood open and delivering some value to the customer, that they can see, oh, look, while I'm tinkering around in this system, maybe I'll address something else that takes us towards our architectural roadmap, but it's only going to be about half the effort. So not only does a product owner need to be focused on our customers, they need to be balancing the needs of our business, and customers expect products to be safe. So that means no vulnerabilities, or that we're delivering change or value within, I guess, our risk appetite. I'm sure a lot of us got caught out who were on Windows machines and I can't remember what it was called now, but how we all got the blue screen of death about a couple of weeks ago, which I found really interesting and a good lesson to always test before you put something into prod. So that's a little bit about, some of the impact our transformation has had. It's still early days and there's a lot more to go. I think if I wanted to leave you with a few key takeaways from this, it's really around, it is important to think big, but it's also equally important to start small and run those experiments so you can get the learnings. I think if you have, I've got a little picture on the right here, but it's really, how do you try and shift your leaders to be outcome oriented as opposed to output oriented? That's another one that's constantly something that you need to work with them on. And again, I'm like, can we talk less about the work and talk more about the outcomes? And when we're clear on those, let's make sure that the work does ladder up to those outcomes. I already mentioned your secret sauce is the people, so value them, recognize them, support them. If people are applying anti-patterns, there's a pretty good chance they just don't know why. And maybe their system around them needs a bit of tweaking. It's people have great intent is what I've learned. And so take the time to listen and understand what their challenges are and help them overcome it. I think less and less these days frameworks are required. And I would say as well that picking up a safe model or something like this, I don't know if you're ever really going to get the full value unless you contextualize it to your environment. That's really important as well. And so just know that you won't get it perfect the first time round as well, that done will be better than perfect. And this is why we have continuous improvement and even better, continuous learning. So you can take stock of the things that you've done and get that feedback and be able to iterate and improve it over time. And so how do you do that? Make sure you embed your feedback loops. People talk about, I think operating rhythms or cadences or your heartbeat or your feedback loop, whatever you want to call it. I do think that it's important when people are first beginning to give them a little bit of structure. And by that, I mean, inspiration will get you there, but then, discipline will keep you there. And I think being disciplined in retrospectives or continuous improvement is really important if you want to continue your transformation. And nurture a safe to fail environment. Promote psychological safety within. Don't quit. Make sure that you are relentless with continuous improvement. Optimize your processes to make sure that you're always looking at how you can deliver those products and services sooner. make sure things are safe as well, and be clear. The last thing I would leave you with is just be clear on your personal purpose. I mentioned this earlier, but it's really important that your personal why carries you through, because like I said, it's tough doing this day in, day out. The things that put the fuel in my tank are those little success stories where you've actually made a difference in someone's life, especially at work, where you've made it easier for them to be able to do what they need to do in the workplace. And then so I guess my call to action to everybody that's on this call is really consider how you share your story with the community. I've been at a round table, and I've met people from, the RBA, I've met people from pharma. A lot of us face the same challenges wherever I look. And so how do we share and learn with each other to be able to, ideally avoid some of the pitfalls? Sometimes you have to learn the hard way though. But I think also it's just nice to be able to have that connectivity to the community as well, and know that you're on the right track. And sometimes you just need to not just share your successes, but have a safe space where you can share some of these stories that probably resonate with you as well. I really love the concept of better value, sooner, safer, happier. I think even before Ronald, who I worked with previously, put me in touch with Maria, I used to use the audiobooks for executives. I'm like, if I really want to just distill this down, what we're trying to do, have a little look at some of these videos. I've shared the books with executives in my organization, and I think it's quite funny. Some of them have been, it seems that we have a few anti-patterns, and then some of them are like, I don't know if we're really doing any of this within here. So I think it's a good point for people to be able to take a step back and just have a reflection point around what it's all about, which it is. I think the title says everything. How do you give better value? How do you do it sooner? And how do you make sure it's safe? And how do you make sure people are happy when they're doing it? I think you've got to meet people where they're at as well. So support others to adopt no regret behaviours. The way that we approached it within Zurich, it's also the way that I approached it at Woolies. Might have had something to do with the consultancy, I don't know. But we had put in to say, like, how do you get started with this? Especially if you don't have an agile coach, because that's obviously one of the, I guess, limitations for people to take on more advanced practices, because it's costly, and people see an agile coach role often as a luxury. And I've had executives say to me, if I can hire an underwriter that brings me in X amount of dollars to the business and an agile coach, which one do you think I should take? And I'm like, well, I'm biased, so I don't know if you should ask me that, but let me tell you why. Anyway, so do think about what are those easy things that people can do that are low risk that they'll get value from regardless. And then make sure you're leading the change. I'm an advocate of making sure that we drink our own champagne. It's not eating our own dog food. It's way more delicious than that. Worst case scenario, we build empathy for the people that we're trying to help and evolve and enlighten to different ways of working. And so, look, I guess in summary, delivering value sooner means for me, like, how do we reduce that time to market through the continuous delivery and iterative development? I think we need to make sure we're optimizing our flow efficiency so we have shorter lead times and reduced cycle times. And, how do we embrace these technologies that are coming out as well to be able to take us to the next level even sooner? Anyway, that was a whirlwind tour of the story that Zurich is on, or the journey that Zurich is on to be able to become a more adaptable organisation. It's not over by any stretch. I'm not sure if it ever will be over. I know that at places I worked at previously, they were up to 3.0 in their operating model, and now they don't even bother putting any O's because they just know it's a continual thing that they need to do. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions.